How does someone go from being a serial procrastinator to one who actually gets things done well before a deadline?
That's a great question. And in order to answer it, I'm gonna have to take you way back. Like, way, way back.
Like lots of students, back in college, I almost always waited until the very last minute to work on papers, study for finals, and plan for my classes. I was busy, doing other things.
And those problems compounded towards the end of my senior year. After months of putting off a meeting with my guidance counselor, I finally relented and cleared some room from my really busy schedule to sit down with her. But it turns out that I was already too late. She informed me that I didn't have the right credits to graduate. Apparently, I'd done a really bad job of planning out my classes. Oh, shit. So in order to get my degree, I had to spend $10,000 on 2 classes the summer after the rest of my fellow classmates were graduating. Those 2 classes, and I kid you not, were basic algebra and weightlifting. Now, I could spend a whole lot of time bitching and moaning about how the system is unfair, how college is too expensive, why would a filmmaker need to take these 2 classes to begin with? But the truth is, if I had actually just been a little bit proactive, if I was able to overcome this chronic procrastination, I would have avoided all of these problems.
I've come a long way from those early days, and it wasn't a straight line to figure out how to improve my work habits, but I want to share some of the things that I've learned and some of the resources that have helped me the most. First, I think it helps to understand what we're up against, and no book has made that more clear than Do the Work by Steven Pressfield. I've mentioned Steven Pressfield's book on this channel a few times before, and with good reason. It's inspired thousands of people to silence their inner critic and simply get to work.
As Steven Pressfield writes, resistance cannot be seen, heard, touched, or smelled, but it can be felt. We experience it as an energy field radiating from a work in potential. Resistance is a repelling force. It's negative. Its aim is to shove us away, distract us, prevent us from doing our work.
When you see your work as a battle to be fought every day, you will take your work more seriously and see the resistance when it slides into your DMs. Those are my words, not Steven Pressfield's.
Part of the battle to overcome procrastination or resistance, whatever you want to call it, comes with understanding just how delusional we are about the task that needs to be done. It's almost never as difficult or painful as we make it out to be.
I know that as long as I can get past the first 30 minutes of work, things will eventually get easier. If I just commit to sitting down for 30 minutes to start writing, organizing my taxes, or responding to emails, then things will slowly start to fall into place. It's that blank page that's most paralyzing. But something amazing happens when your brain starts to kick into gear. You enter a state of flow.
It's technically defined as an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and we perform our best. And more colloquially, right, it's any of those moments of rapt attention and total absorption. Get so focused on what you're doing that everything else just vanishes.
Stephen Kotler is an author and has been researching the flow state for the past 2 decades.
How do you drive focus in the present moment? One of the big ways you do it is you release dopamine. There are 5 different flow triggers that are all dopamine triggers. So risk produces dopamine, right? Whenever we take a risk, we get dopamine. Dopamine is how the brain fires us up for taking that risk. Whenever we encounter novelty, we get dopamine. Complexity produces dopamine. Unpredictability produces dopamine, and so does pattern recognition, which is the linking of ideas together.
By utilizing flow triggers, we prime our brains to get to work. Stephen suggests instead of staring at a blank page, you might want to start by editing something you've already written. That flow trigger would be pattern recognition. He's also got a clever way to do mundane tasks that I wish I knew about back in college.
I spend a lot of time reading textbooks these days, which is not the most exciting thing to do, but I love to do it. I always go someplace new because I want the novelty, because it's going to produce dopamine, which is going to tighten focus and, hopefully drive me into flow while I'm reading. But one way or another, when you get more dopamine in your system, learning rates go up as a general rule also. So going and doing my homework, basically, the hard stuff I've got to do my job, just in different coffee shops that I would not normally go to, just that little bit of novelty is enough.
I'll be going more into Stephen's work and the flow state in a video in a couple of weeks.
One technique that might help you get started is called the Pomodoro technique. This is something that I first learned about through Thomas Frank's YouTube channel. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Thomas, but if not, I'll leave a link down in the description. It's very simple. Essentially, you set a timer and you work for 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break, and you repeat that over and over again.
It can be an effective way to reduce procrastination and increase productivity because it creates a sense of urgency. Instead of looking at your work week and seeing just wide open blocks of time, you give yourself a time constraint to crank out as much as you possibly can. It's something that my editor, Oscar, has gotten a ton of value from in the past few weeks.
It's great. I love it.
I've never personally followed the Pomodoro technique, but I have used timers to create that sense of urgency, as well as to take a break from staring at a screen all day. Generally, what I do is I'll set a timer for 60 minutes, and then I'll start working. A lot of times I forget about the timer. If it does ring and I feel compelled to step away from my work, it's a nice break, so I'm not always just staring at a screen hour after hour every single day.
So if you're working on a very big project, let's say something that's going to take you more than one day, maybe weeks or months, what's helped me is to create additional deadlines leading up to my final deadline. Working backwards from that true deadline, I can break my project up into multiple milestones, leaving some room for buffer in the event that things take longer than expected. Hint, things always take longer than expected.
Even creating weekly meetings and personal check-ins on your calendar can be a great way to help you stay on track and accountable. Now, my wife Natalie and I, as many of you know, got married at a drive-through wedding in Vegas. Yes, that's really a thing that we did, but we are also planning right now a wedding in Italy, and this has been something that has certainly created a lot of stress in, well, I want to say my life, but really Natalie's the one that's doing all the work. Since the beginning, Natalie has had a very difficult time wrangling me and getting me to do the work necessary to plan the wedding. It just always seemed to me to be, well, boring, but also it just seemed crazy that there was just so much time. We had a year and a half to plan this thing. It always seemed like there would be more time or a better time to actually get the work done. But as I'm aware from past experiences, if I continued with that mentality, it could lead to devastating consequences. Oh shit.
So I suggested that Nat and I schedule 1-hour meetings every Monday night at 7 p.m. Most weeks there would be things to discuss, decisions to make, and plans to coordinate.
Instead of having Natalie hound me every week with things to do, and instead of me putting things off week after week, we had a set time to meet up, to collaborate, to discuss things, and to get things done. And importantly for me, I had a deadline every week at 7 p.m. on Monday to turn things into my boss, Natalie, to turn things into Natalie.
I've also found it helpful to create rewards for myself. There are many days where I have the urge to play video games first thing in the morning instead of getting straight to work. The difficulty and uncertainty of my work sometimes seems daunting, while on the other hand, playing video games seems relaxing and therapeutic.
Oh, come on, dude. This thing is broken. Cutting video games completely out of my life isn't the right solution for me personally because, well, I like to play video games, and I wouldn't be as happy if I never got to play them again. So instead, what I do is I actually take video games and I turn it into a reward for doing the thing that I really don't want to do.
I'll give myself a clear task, like spend 3 hours calculating and adding receipts into my accounting software. And then, once I'm finished, I'll allow myself to play video games. Now I've not only gotten some important work done, but I can actually enjoy this activity guilt-free, because I earned it.
I was honestly talking with your mom last night. I don't think that she would really appreciate that language. So all these hodgepodge of tactics, mindsets, and strategies have become essential tools for me that allow me to do the work that I do every day. And the good news is the more you do them, the better you get at it, the less likely you are to procrastinate. But be warned, the resistance is very sneaky and comes up with lots of creative ways to pull you away from the work that you find most important. Oh shit.